Hey there, this is Mr. Icarus, and welcome to yet another edition of Doom Mod Madness. This time round, we're checking out something a little different from the norm. I figured I'd dig a little deeper after last week's edition of Doom Mod Madness, and I came up with this. This is GZ Schmup. That's right, someone made a vertical shooter in Doom. More specifically GZ Doom, but that doesn't detract from the fact that this is tremendously cool. If you're not already aware, I do have a particular soft spot for the good old-fashioned shmup, be it something like Ikagura, Crimson Clover, even classics like Tyrion and R-Type. I generally love the vast majority of shmups, so when I stumbled across this in an entry dating back to 2012 on the forums I usually lurk on, you could say that I had a big fat grin on my face. But believe it or not, there is actually some justification for all of the shooty business going on here in GZ Schmup, because this actually features a fairly involved story campaign. You essentially start off as a space pirate, taking care of the usual space piratey type business, looting cargo from ships, kidnapping princesses, holding them to ransom, only the princess actually wants to be kidnapped, and you're suddenly embroiled in a galaxy-wide spanning conflict. Certainly wasn't something I came into this mod expecting, but it was a nice surprise nonetheless, a fine skeleton on which to hang the action of the mod itself. Speaking of the action, it's pretty simple by shmup standards, but still, that doesn't stop it from offering a fair amount of challenge. You'll see at the bottom there is a grey and blue bar, the blue bar being my shields, the grey ship's armor. And as you can see right now, I'm not doing very well, because dealing with these turrets for some reason just causes me a minor amount of brain fail. Thankfully, shields recharge, offering you a little bit of respite if you're taking a hammering. Also, I'm pretty sure your shields recharge quicker if you're not firing your main weapon, which is an interesting trade-off when in the heat of battle. But as for recharging the armor itself, you can actually acquire pickups from certain enemies that will repair your ship on the fly. So how about those enemies then? What are you going to be up against during the average stage here in GZ Schmup? And as you can see, there's a fairly decent variety of them. We've got ships that will send projectiles out to either side for you to dodge. We've got missile ships that will launch a tracking missile at you. We've got spread fire ships. I'm pretty sure, yep, we've got some spinning turret ships there as well. And truth is, if you're a seasoned player of shmups, say you play quite a lot of bullet hell, for example, you'll find that there's not a lot during these stages that will actually cause you to sweat. Maybe apart from the fact that your armor, the little grey bar at the bottom, remains persistent throughout the course of the campaign. That's probably the one thing that caused me the most stress overall, because you're constantly hunting for those armor repair drops from fallen ships, and sometimes they just don't appear. As a result, this can quite often put you in a very poor position for the following stage, or even worse, put you in a really bad position for fighting against a boss. Bosses seem to be the one element of GZ Schmup that I can't quite pin down, because on occasion it seems as if some of them are randomly generated in terms of configuration and in terms of the weapons that actually appear on their hulls, which is really cool if that is certainly the case. What isn't as cool is how quite often these bosses will be firing their lasers full force at you before they fully appeared on the screen, meaning you'll take some quite unavoidable hits sometimes, but other than that, they can be quite interesting and enjoyable to play against, with a nice variety of weapons at their disposal. The unfortunate and slightly disappointing flip side to all of this wonderful boss variety in terms of the armaments that they can wield against you is that when it comes to the armaments you can wield against them, there's not really a lot of choice here. In terms of pickups, you can find alt-fire rockets, which are occasionally useful. They home in on the enemy and inflict a fair amount of damage, but when it comes to your primary weapon, the weapon that you start the campaign with, that's the weapon you're going to be stuck with for the duration. You can't alter its fire speed, you can't improve its effectiveness, and that just seems like a little bit of a missed opportunity, a little bit of a shame. So, what is there to do in GZ Schmup if you're not really a fan of the story-driven campaign, or maybe if you finished it and you're looking for more? Well, thankfully, GZ Shmup actually comes with a few alternate modes. This one right here is Aggressor mode, and you'll notice the big red bar to the left of the screen, and this counts up the more enemies you destroy. If you're not destroying enemies, it will slowly tick back downwards. Once you fill it, you will encounter a boss, all with rather amusing name combinations such as Dimensional Battleship Cotton here. And as far as first round bosses go, this one seemed a little bit like a giant middle finger aimed in my particular direction, but it still lent credence to my theory that these bosses come in randomized configurations. Actually reminded me a little of Warning Forever. The other mode that's available here is Score mode, which is a little simpler in its execution from Aggressor mode. You simply have to hit a certain score on the bottom left there, and once you do, you guessed it, you get another great big fat boss to take down. And I wasn't kidding about that boss variety. This one has a great big grabby claw strapped to the back of it. How can you not enjoy that? God forbid you come across a boss with all of the unique weaponry strapped to it though, because on occasion you'll find something that not only has a grabby claw and missile launchers and lasers, but also gravitational sphere launchers which can suck you in and cause damage, or even worse, you may find one that has space flamethrowers strapped to it, and believe me, those are difficult to get around. But yeah, both of these modes are essentially survival modes with a twist. They will just keep going until you either die or get bored, and that kind of did happen with Score mode. I fell into a rhythm where after each boss I was just about acquiring enough armor from the regular enemies to get me through the following boss, and so on, to the point where I just had to step away and have a little bit of a rest, because if I didn't, I'd probably still be playing it right now. There's just something oddly satisfying about dismantling an enemy battleship's weapons platforms before ultimately blowing it the hell up. There's one thing I did forget to mention a little earlier with regards to pickups, and you may be wondering what the various letters mean that I pick up. If you look at the bottom, they'll eventually spell out GZ Schmup on the bar there, and when you do collect all of the letters, they give you full health and full shields, which is okay, I guess. I was probably hoping for something a little bit more dramatic, maybe a super mode that overcharges everything and makes you super powerful, as well as the additional health and shields, but no, apparently not. Oh well, guess it's fortunate then that GZ Schmup remains tremendously enjoyable even without the inclusion of such things. I mean, sure, it's got its flaws. The armor system can occasionally be quite frustrating because the armor just won't drop in certain stages, forcing you to maybe abuse the occasional console command, but still, I found it enjoyable enough to see it through all the way to the end, and it certainly does some very impressive things within the engine here. It makes me wonder whether anyone else has decided to give this genre a try in Doom modding. I'd be very interested to see what they've managed to come up with. In the meantime, if you're interested in checking out GZ Schmup for yourself, the link is in the description below. And if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about the shmup genre in general, you can point yourself over to my 5th Circle of Bullet Hell playlist. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments, and feel free to suggest any mod you'd like to see me cover in future episodes of Doom Mod Madness. This has been Mr. Icarus. Thank you very much for watching. Icarus out.